your journey is truly inspiring to me. It's
Thanks.
the live example of what is meant to be will be. Because
That's true.
right, you were singing and you had
Mm-hmm.
no idea, right? Please correct me again if I'm
Mm-hmm.
wrong. You had no idea that you would end up in America, be accepted into Juilliard, and not only graduate from Juilliard, but also teach at Juilliard. Did you ever
No.
think that?
No, I did not. I mean, the thing is, I never planned any of it. That's if I mean, certainly or dream about it or whatever it is. My ambition is to, no, none of that. I mean, again, maybe if I grew up in the US as a kid, maybe I would have been that way, and maybe I still would have made it to the same places. I don't know, but those things are not in the radar of a South Asian kid growing up in South Asia. I mean, that's not possible. Now maybe if at all, only because people have access to the internet. I mean, when I was a teenager, I think computers has just started or something.
Yeah,
I didn't
like
have
those
one
big
anyway.
screen. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have access to like I think the first time I used a computer was when I was maybe last year of my high school. That too through my school and not through not at home. And so we didn't have enough knowledge. Things seem so far
Yeah.
distant. Like I had heard of Juilliard because Rohan De Silva, who's also on faculty at Juilliard, who's a violinist and a pianist, mostly a pianist, a collaborative pianist, who is currently has been for a while as well the main pianist for Itzhak Perlman, the big violin, you know, virtuoso. So he's from Sri Lanka and he went to Juilliard and he started working at Juilliard. I knew of Juilliard that way and
Right.
also through some movies and things like that. But he's much more senior to me, so it was sort of like he would come to Sri Lanka to do concerts, and my parents have taken me to see him play. That's my understanding of Juilliard.
Right.
But no, never would I have thought. But yeah, things do tend to sort of take you through fate, whatever what you're meant to do. But I do think that there is more than that to it, like things have to align, like you have a part to play in it too. Because the reason I say that is because you can't sort of be in a passive place
True.
and think that this is supposed to be my fate, whatever happens will happen. You cannot not work. you know I think if you work hard, when I say work hard, I don't mean don't get any sleep, work all the time. It's I mean, taking care of your business every moment is important, whether it be eating food or going to bed, or if you're watching something on TV, don't be a passive watcher. You have
Right.
to watch it for what would it have been like to create this thing. It has more than just enjoying a story, right? And then sometimes there's times to also do just that. You need to sort of detach yourself and see the complete surface of things. And being curious about all elements, I think is, especially as an artist, creates your next step and the next step. And that will lead you to your fate. You can't just think that it's going to happen. um I do think that especially today, given that so much of it is sort of instantly done for you in just day-to-day life through technology and things, people do think that certain nitty-gritty things or the details don't really matter because those can be done by like a software or but that process is so key to finding that path that might hook you eventually into taking you through what's meant for you.
Being
So
intentional and consistent.
consistent, intentional, yes, definitely those two things.
Did you always want to become an opera singer, or did you have other dreams when you were like 4 or 5 years old?
Oh no, I did not have any intention of becoming any kind of artist, to be honest.
No way.
No, I did not. Because at least the time I was growing up in the, like, I was born in the 80s, but like through the 90s is what I remember, because I was like, a tween going into teen years. So that's my most vivid memory. At that time, um, regardless of the war, okay, just in general, the economy is such and the culture is such that if you want to eventually be somewhat of an independent woman, you needed to have a job, etc. And there's no opera in Sri Lanka, first of all. It's merely something that you hear maybe if you have access to a CD player or something, because
Right.
there's no YouTube, right? Like the world was very different about 20 years back. So it's something that I like to do, and I felt like my voice responds to it, and that was always on the side, right?
Yeah.
So my intention was to become uh, somewhat more of a scientific person. Like, my parents would have liked me to become a doctor. I was not convinced that that's what I wanted to be, but I loved biology, physics. So that was my side of work, and whatever that was going to take me to being. And I like research, and I was just fascinated by the world, and
Yeah.
how things worked. So I would have ended up in something in those lines, and again, numbers. My dad had told me that engineering is a great field, but he was always swaying me away from it, saying that in our culture, always the men will get the jobs. So you have to be mindful of that. And you might end up just being a civil engineer, even though you're really good with numbers, like he was like warning me, just be careful what you choose. So those were the things we were thinking about for me, until like I got this scholarship for music, which was like fell from nowhere, and then I ended up here.
Wait, could
uh,
you tell more about this? How did you were discovered, right?
well, I did a competition in Sri Lanka that was run by the Symphony Orchestra of Sri Lanka, called the Concerto competition, which is like, it has categories like voice, string instruments, whatever, all the other categories. And then I did take part in the voice category. And I was around 15 years old,
Okay.
or 16 maybe. Anyway, so I had won that competition that year, and one of the things that part of the award, is you'll be invited to sing with the orchestra for a concert. And then if that goes well, usually, you get re-invited at another point and so on. So I became sort of like someone who ended up singing relatively frequently with the orchestra whenever I had time. And in one of those concerts, actually specifically the year 2000 millennial concert, is when this whole situation sort of had a twist of fate for me, where they had also invited an American pianist, a professor from Converse College in South Carolina. He was touring Asia at the time, and he was invited to come perform as a like a guest artist. And in that particular concert in year 2000 December, before like the millennial stuff, all celebrations, I was singing as a soloist and he was performing piano as a soloist. I was a kid, so it was sort of like there was no comparison. He's like a big deal and everything. uh, and in that concert, his wife was with him as well, and they kind of talked to my parents, to me, trying to see, like, if there's any way that I could consider going somewhere to actually have training. And
Wow.
because they thought that there was something there, and of course we were like, there's no funds, there's other plans. And that's where the conversation began. And then they left, and over a few months of them trying to convince me to apply to colleges and stuff, which did not work. As in we didn't end up applying. They facilitated a scholarship to the university they were at, Converse College in South Carolina, because that was where he had some say in terms of all these, like, money and things like that,
Got
scholarships.
it.
And they sent me a letter saying, just come. And that's when my dad and I made the trip to the US. It was sort of like, let's go and see what happens, sort of thing, you know? And then if we don't like, we can just come back. Um, so never really thought that it would go there. And I thought, okay, if I end up doing a bachelor of music degree,
Wow.
I might just come home and maybe start a music school, because there wasn't one as such during the time I was growing up back in Sri Lanka. Now things have changed, but so that was sort of the beginning of this sort of new idea of there might be something here, you know?
See, it came
Uh,
after you. Your fate came after you.
I
Came and
suppose, I
came
suppose,
and
or it
found
was always
you.
there. I just didn't know about it.
Oh my God, this is so beautiful. We worry too much about the future and what's going to happen. And oh my God, what am I going to do? What's my future? And we start just planning, but the actual plan, when it needs to happen, it will happen at the right time, the right
Yeah,
place.
I think so. I think the big picture usually is not something that we have a lot of control over, but we do have to plan. I mean, I like planning. Like when I say plan, I mean like, you know, if you have a concert coming, for example, I'm just using a concert because of the context we're in. You can't learn your music too close to the concert. You will not perform your best, you know? If you know something is coming, it's your job to learn the material as soon as possible, not in a hurry, not under pressure, so that it sinks into you. So that itself will propel you to sort of going from, like, say you don't know who's going to hear you at the concert. That makes all the difference. Like either you make an impression on somebody of influence, or you just don't. Like they won't think that you were terrible, but you won't make a positive impact, period. Same thing with, like, you know, if you're taking an exam, it's okay if you fail, but if you don't do the work, you don't even know what you're capable of, right? So I've always been that way, and I encourage everybody to sort of strive for it. Have I not done well certain times? Of course, because that's like normal, you know. Uh, but at least I know within that, how whatever things were going on at that time, that was the best I was able to do. And so you don't live with like regrets, you know.
Yes, your words are so right on the point and very wise. It's to be proactive,
Yeah,
not controlling, but be proactive and not passive,
correct,
right?
correct. Yeah. I
Do
mean, you
your
can
part.
also,
Mhm.
sorry, you can also like overdo it, as in, it doesn't mean you don't rest. It doesn't mean you don't have fun, you know. So there's always a balance, right? But you know, at least for me, if I'm like procrastinating, I don't know if that's the right word to use in the context, but um that's not fun for me, because I feel like if I work hard, like doing nothing, for example, doesn't is guilt free. It feels amazing, like you earn that time, you know, and then you actually are able to have a good time. But whereas if I know a whole lot of like stuff waiting to be done and I'm not getting there, I'm not even having a good time while I'm doing nothing, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it is important to like play hard too, right? Like earn that time for yourself so that you feel really good, you know?
You do. You will see the difference.
Yeah. And then when you get back to the work, it doesn't feel like such a burden, because
So,
you're fresh and ready to embrace. I mean, of course, given that you love the work you do, that is, you know.
for sure. I want to ask you
Mhm.
another question. Personal question again.
That's okay. You can ask.
If you were now have the ability or have the opportunity to go back
Mhm.
in time and sit next to that young version of you in the airplane on to America, what would you tell her?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily tell her to do anything different, honestly, because I can't imagine doing anything different, meaning something that I wish I did differently, you know. I'm glad I didn't know a lot of things, I
Wait,
really am glad. Like, I didn't know what a voice lesson was going to be like. I didn't know that I had to learn all these languages. I think if I had known all of that, I would have been a bit overwhelmed and sort of even doubted myself. Like, things got thrown at me. I was just like, man, just take one hit at a time kind of
were
thing,
you
you know?
scared at all in any way?
You know, yes, yes, I was nervous. But at the same time, I think what I mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, I didn't really care about what anyone thought,
Yeah,
you know.
that's
So that helped me to not be so anxious about it. You
yeah.
know, I think the issue comes when you start to think of what other people think, you know. And my parents too were pretty instrumental on this because, like my dad said, if this doesn't work out, you just come home. You know, I mean, that's huge, you know, because it's not like, okay, you know, we're letting you go. Like now, you know, you're changing course, so it better make some sense, you know, be worthwhile or whatever. But they didn't say that to me, you know, and I think that's important. That was important for me to know that there was no like, it's not a matter of me quitting if I came home, you know, it was just like that was not right for me. And I had that permission from them. Not that I needed it, but I'm glad I had it. And that also made me feel like I wasn't under any sort of pressure to sort of
Mm,
prove myself. I was just given an opportunity to discover myself, but
yeah.
not so much like, you know, an ultimatum of sorts, you know. I did not feel like I was trying to prove myself to anybody, you know. And that felt amazing, actually.
That's
It
actually very
really,
important to get that reassurance from your parent that
yes,
th-
yes.
no matter what you do, no matter who you are, you're always loved and protected, and we're not gonna love you just because you did this and that,
Hmm.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Takes a lot
Uh,
of pressure off the child's
yes.
shoulders.
Yeah.
That
Which was very surprising to me because, you know, my parents always wanted to make sure that my sister and I were secure because it's just two girls, you know, and they didn't want us to have to depend on anyone necessarily. Um, so it must have been quite hard for them to be that way, you know. So it's pretty cool, actually. I was lucky.
was gonna unconditional love.
Yeah.
That's very commendable. Taranga, do you think that singing has healing powers, like actual physical and emotional healing powers?
Uh, I think sound does.
Can we talk about this
Um,
a little bit more?
yeah, sure. I think. I mean, I know that there are like, you know, proper scientific explanations to these things, but from a pure, like, you know, very sort of layman way of thinking about it, I mean, personally, I experience it all the time. Uh, my mindset, way I feel before and after singing is quite different. And that is enough for me to know that it is a very powerful experience just to sing. And I'm not even saying sing well, I'm just saying sing.
Yes.
You know, because everyone can sing. How good there is irrelevant, right? And then, you know, if you want to develop it, you just gather skills and advice, and then that's a whole nother thing. But when we sing, I believe that we have, without even knowing, we have the ability to engage all our senses. And there's very few things, at least in today's world, that can help us get there as quickly as singing does. uh I mean, we can engage all our senses consciously if we, like, you know, try to meditate or something, but there's so much chaos in the world. I feel like it's not that practical for most of us. But if you start to sing, it gets you there quite quickly, actually. And the trick is to observe that it's happening. You know, what am I feeling? Like, what five senses, right? Visual, smell, taste, touch, and what am I missing? Hearing, right? So all of those things can be engaged. You might say, like, you don't really smell anything
Or
when you
taste
sing,
anything.
or taste anything, but you know, you might be surprised. Like, um, taste is, it doesn't have to be sweet, sour, salt. It can be a feeling in the mouth. Like if you say something in French, it feels very different from saying something in Italian,
Oh,
even
really?
if it's the same exact word, like l'amour or amore or love. Like there's a feeling that you can't really tell, okay, that was just a skin related sensation. It's not. It comes from an emotional trigger. It's the way you relate to the language, whether you like the language or not. Like it's so many things that we don't really pay attention to. So when you say taste, it could be like, we use the word taste for food, or like, taste like that, or the taste of color combinations, taste of two sounds matching together. Isn't that taste? Do you
Yes.
know what I mean?
Yes.
So why would we limit ourselves to thinking that somehow, okay, taste has nothing to do with singing? It has everything to do with it. And same with smell, right? Like, uh, I mean, it might be somewhat figurative, but we can sort of allow our mind to go into places like, if you're singing about something, we're always singing about something, you know what I mean? Like if you're really engaged with your words, there you can start to evoke a smell. Like if you're singing about a person in a garden, it's different from if you're singing about someone who's sitting in a bedroom singing to a baby. Like if you're singing about someone in love in their bedroom, like there is senses, like, smells that we associate with in all of those contexts. And when we're singing is one of those things that sort of slows you down, because you don't sing in the same pace that you speak, and your senses have the opportunity to get evoked. Even if it is sort of tricked into it, because it's not actually happening in like real time, those things that we're singing about, it puts you in a very vulnerable place willingly, without consequences that are necessarily harmful. It's a great healing experience. It's therapeutic.
That was very well explained. I had absolutely no idea.
I mean, I think
But
actors do that too.
I know,
You
but
know,
I mean, the relationship this was interesting and this was so true. The relationship that you have with certain language emotionally will definitely play a huge role in how you perform that monologue
yeah.
or whatever that line is, or even the lyrics that you're singing. And and the way that you connected that to the senses, that was very interesting.